Kia ora koutou, due to the fact of us being 7 minutes behind, I have my opening joke is stuffed. It was going to be about 2:30. But Robbie Beaglehog would have liked it, even if you guys wouldn't, so stuff you. Look, I want to echo a lot of the comments that's been made about taxes today, and I just want to dig down into some of the disagreements or some of the arguments you've heard run by the likes of the Tax Whingers Union or the New Zealand Initiative. The great irony I find of these organisations opposing sugary sweetened beverage taxes or junk food taxes is, you know, the Tax Whingers Union absolutely abhor the healthcare costs that are headed our way through the diabetes tsunami, but of course, secretly they don't want any public healthcare. As for the New Zealand Initiative, while they claim to support productivity growth in New Zealand, we know that actually diabetes is probably the major economic threat to New Zealand right now. But for some reason, you know, that is trumped by their desire for freedom, or perhaps more cynically because of the people that are supporting them financially. But the fact is that they're still winning. Their arguments are still winning. So I want to look at these arguments, and I want to talk to you about them, and just to echo the comments that have been made before about the importance of marketing, about the, you know, no one gives a stuff about your research, frankly. You do great work, but the great New Zealand public do not care. This is about marketing, it's about comms, it's about how we message this stuff. That's where the battleground is, and I'd love to see a whole day symposium on that stuff. Although there has been some really good stuff on it today, I don't want to devalue that in any way. So, 5 basic lines that we'll quickly go through in this presentation. It'll hurt the poor. It didn't work somewhere. People will downshift, which I talked about after the film presentation we had. People will move to non-tax products, so substitution effects, and the difference will be small or it won't reduce obesity. So the first one, it'll hurt the poor. Yes, sugary sweetened beverage taxes and junk food taxes, if you just look at them, are regressive in their pure sense. But it depends how you spend the money. That's the thing with any tax. There's 2 sides to the ledger. There's not just how you raise the money, there's how you spend it too. So that's crucial. How we talk about spending the money is potentially a massive progressive area. And also, the health benefits are massively progressive, because we know that people on lower incomes are much more likely to reduce consumption in response to price. And that's what this is all about, folks. This is all about reducing your consumption in response to a price increase, okay? That's what, when people talk about elasticity, that's what it means, okay? You get a price rise, how much does demand drop? All right, so that's really what most of these arguments are about. It didn't work in X. Denmark, of course, is the the well-known example. And I'd suggest to you that politically, if we try to saturated fat tax here, that would probably go the same way. But the other thing about Denmark is that, you know, Denmark is, the entire country is 1 hour's drive from another country. So very difficult to stop leakage of any sort of taxation in that respect, and that was the major problem they had. So tax design is a major issue, but comparing New Zealand with Denmark is simply not the case. You have to get on a plane and fly somewhere, and your baggage allowance is not going to cut it very much in terms of smuggling bottles of Coke. The Tokelau conversation was interesting in that respect. And that is the problem with trying to ban something as opposed to trying to tax something, that you do open yourself up to black markets. So in terms of design, and you've heard people talk today about excise versus ad valorem, and I just want to make sure you understand this difference. These are the current prices of Cokes of cola, I should say, a cola in the New World supermarket just across from me in Pipitea, next to Waitangi Park. So not much more for a 44 litre, 0.44 litre large can of Coke, which is cold, compared to a 1.5 bottle of Coke. So actually you're paying more for a smaller size serving, right? Totally counterintuitive from an economic perspective, but they're going for convenience. They're just aiming for people walking past. And then down to almost $1 for a 1.5 budget litre of cola, okay? So an ad valorem tax, basically putting 20% on the price of everything. Of course, that penalises most of all the smaller serving size, which again is kind of a crazy thing to happen. We don't want that price discrepancy to get even worse. And the people that get off most lightest are the budget cola people from a 20% rise. Okay? And so that's actually increasing the difference between the 1.5 litre cola and the budget cola. So this is the risk when people talk about downshifting. And that's one of the arguments that's been raised by the New Zealand Initiative. They have apparently, one of the Waikato University professors has done some work looking at elasticities in Vietnam and looked at for every 4 people that apparently reduce their consumption when price goes up. Actually, 3 of those 4 people aren't reducing their consumption, they're just shifting to a cheap brand. So their argument is that actually soft drink taxes only have a quarter the impact of what is put forward because a lot of those people are switching to cheaper brands. This is where the data is really important. I'm trying to find out what the situation is in Mexico is on this. Going to Washington next week to talk to some of those people over there. But the issue there is an ad valorem tax makes that downshifting risk worse. Okay, and to understand this, we can't just use sales data. We actually need consumption data. All right, so there is some pretty technical issues there. But if you go for an excise tax, that risk of downshifting reduces because, as you can see, an excise tax barely impacts your tiny 0.44 litre can, but it nails your budget brand the same as it nails your Coke brand. Okay, so reduced risk of downshifting in that circumstance, and this is just a one-off impact, right? Over time, Coke's going to react to that. If people are shifting to a budget brand, Coke will shift its price down. They'll do that by reducing their advertising. Okay, so over time, as a tax increases, an excise tax increases, we will see the closing between Coke and the budget brands, and effectively it will become a tax on brands and on advertising in this area, which, frankly, I've got no problem with. I don't, as an economist, I don't have any issue with that whatsoever. The only question here is how much can we expect in terms of reduced consumption from a tax. Most of the estimates almost go 1 for 1. A 20% tax means a 20% drop in reduction. With downshifting, it may be a bit less than that. Okay, I don't think the Vietnam results are representative of New Zealand, but there will be some of that impact in there. The second concern about that when we increase price that we may not get the reduction in quantity consumed is people going for substitutes. Okay, so first substitute, they might make it themselves or pay slave labour to make it for themselves. That's why we have kids, right? So that's that's one circumstance. I don't think that's likely to happen at scale. Fruit juices are already pretty expensive compared to sugary drinks, so I don't think that's a massive risk. Flavoured milks, very similar. And sweets, that is something that the American data suggests that people with an SSB tax, people may shift to consuming sweets. As we've heard, liquids are actually worse from a satiety perspective, so you could even argue that that's a win. And again, people aren't going to entirely make up for their shift to their shift off SSBs to sweets. So even with a reduction, even with complementary impacts, I'd say SSB tax is still comes out a positive. Although in the long run, I guess we do all understand that we are going to need a comprehensive junk food tax to really nail this issue. The Mexico study showed that it reduced consumption, 10% tax reduced consumption by about 1 sugar cube per day. The energy gap that we've got to take out is about 16 or 17 sugar cubes a day. Still, I think that's a great impact, but we are going to need a lot more tools in the case, including, I think, a junk food tax. The last argument is it's going to take forever, or there might not be any impact on obesity of this. I say, well, food industry, you've spent 40 years making us fat. You've got to give us 40 years trying to fix the problem, so get lost. That's me.